Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to yet another session of English grammar class. In the last class, we have learned everything about past perfect tense, and today we are going to learn the next aspect of past tense, that is the past perfect continuous tense. And this past perfect continuous tense is also called past perfect progressive tense, and this is also an advanced tense. We used to talk about the past in a lot of interesting way, and if you listen carefully, all of you can use it easily and naturally by the end of this class. So let's get started. Past perfect continuous is used to talk about something that started in the past and continued in the past up to a certain point, but everything in the past. And you also know that because it has the word past in it, it has the word continuous in it, which means something continued up to a certain point of time in the past. Let's understand it a little better with some examples. And we can use this tense to talk about something that had been happening in the past. As I told you, for example, let's look at this timeline. This is now, and this is the past. So, if I talk about the period from the star point to the X point, I could say during that period I had been living in Delhi. From this point up to this point, I had been living in Delhi, right? During this period, from this time to this time to this time, everything in the past, I had been living in Delhi, or I can also use it to describe something that had been happening and then something else happened. For example, I could say I had been living in Delhi before I moved to Kerala. So let us say that that is from this point to this point. I had been living in Delhi, and from this point I moved to Kerala. So these are some basic idea how it is being used. So past perfect continuous tense explain something that happened in the past from a point of time in the past up to a certain point of time in the past. So it was past, it was perfect and continuous. Okay. Now let us look at the structure of this tense. So basically, we take subject I, you, we, they, he, she, it, and we add had been, and then we take the verb plus ing. So the structure of the tense is subject plus had been plus verb plus ing. For example, I had been living in Delhi, or I had been working in Delhi. You had been living. We had been living. They had been living. He had been living. She had been living. It had been living. So this is past perfect continuous tense. So the structure is subject plus had been plus verb plus ing. So now let's look in detail the structure, how we can form positive sentence, negative sentence and questions. So I have divided the slide into three parts, of one for positive sentence, next for negative sentence and question form. So let's start with the first one. In the positive sentence, what we basically do is we take subject plus had been plus verb plus ing. Let's look at an example. So we take the subject. Subject could be one of these. I, you, we, they, he, she, it. And then add had been plus verb plus ing. So the sentence can be I had been working, you had been working, and so on. Now next, let's look what happens when we want to make a negative sentence. Then basically we are adding the word not along with the positive sentence. That is the only change that happens. So we could say, I had not been working, you had not been working, we had not been working. But in day-to-day conversation, we never say like had not been working. We use only the contracted form. So I hadn't been working, you hadn't been working, he hadn't been working, and so on. Now, next, how do we frame a question? Well, we have to change the word order that we have already seen in the previous tense structure also. So, we could say, had you been working? Had she been working? Had they been working? So, just change the word order. Instead of had been, we have to say had plus the subject and then been. Okay. So also remember you can add question word. Who, what, when, where. So these are the question words that we use generally. So if you need to add a question word before that, then keep the same structure. Just put the question word, place that question word just before had. So we could say, where had you been working? Why had you been working? How long had you been working? I hope you got how these sentences are formed in uh, past perfect continuous tense. So these are the basic forms by which you can form the sentences in past perfect continuous tense. We will continue in the next class. So study all these slides carefully. Thank you. Have a nice day.